All right, hello everyone, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone who have tuned in for this session. I hope that you all enjoyed the previous session with Dr. Naya and Prasad, and you'll enjoy this session as well. So, we have special guests with us who would be your judge in the satellites category as well. But before we begin with the session, let's see some enthusiasm, guys, in the chat sections. If you guys are with me, if you can see me, hear me correctly, just go ahead and write anything in the chat section. You can go ahead and write boom, yay, excited, wow, any emojis whatsoever. It's completely fine. And with that, I'll understand that I am loud and clear, and we are good to begin with today's session. So, without any further ado, let me just quickly pull our special guest onto the screen. So, with us today, we have Mr. Ghanim Alotaibi, who is an engineer at the Kuwait University and a project manager at the Moon Village Association. He also serves in a Middle East regional coordinate for the Space General Advisory Council. He has a master's degree from the University of Freiburg, specializing in photovoltaic. He is an amateur astronomer with serious scientific activities, with his area of interest being astrophotography and visual double star systems. And he is also your judge in the satellites category. So, okay, a big round of applause for Mr. Ghanim Alotaibi. And thank you so much, Mr. Ghanim, for agreeing for this live session and for agreeing to be a judge in the satellites category for our Space Science Challenge 2022.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sotik. Of course, it's my great pleasure to be hosted by you and to share with you some experience, to learn from you, and I'm really happy also to discuss topic lunar exploration for emerging space countries.
Right. So, and yeah, so which I forgot that the topic for this session is why lunar exploration is needed for developing countries. So we'll be talking about this. But before we move forward with that exact topic, let's know that what has been your journey in the space sector and how did you gain so many diverse experiences?
I was graduated as a mechanical engineer from Kuwait University, and I love space. As an undergrad, I was so lucky to have a scholarship from the NASA Astrobiology Institute to attend two space conferences in Glasgow at that time, 2008, the Space Generation Congress and the International Astronautical Congress. And after attending those two conferences, my brain was washed, and I decided I want to be part of space people to do something about space. But the challenge is there is no space activities in Kuwait. I graduated in 2009. I started my new job in Kuwait Oil Company, but in my spare time in the night, so in the morning I was working oil, in the night I studied astronomy University in Australia. And then I decided to be a little bit more pragmatic and do something that is related to energy and in the same time about space, which is photovoltaics. So I studied my master's in photovoltaics.
Right.
I resigned from KOC, Kuwait Oil Company, after 6 years working there. I did my master thesis in Freiburg University in Germany about solar cells for space applications. I returned back to Kuwait. I proposed the CubeSat project. It was funded by the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science. And again, I am lucky again to start the first full-time job in space in Kuwait University. Now actually as a staff member for the Space Studies program offered by the International Space University.
All right. Well, that is all. That is lovely. But I think the last sentence about the scholarship was a little unclear. So could you please repeat that and last statement? I think we didn't quite get you over there.
Oh yeah, in Kuwait, I started the first full-time job in Kuwait University
Hmm.
3 years ago, after Kuwait Foundation of Advancement of Science funded the CubeSat project that I proposed.
Ah,
Um, uh, and now I am in Portugal, in Lisbon, attending, being a staff member in the Space Studies program offered by the International Space University.
Wow, that's lovely. So if anyone is in Portugal, I think they can definitely meet you, Mr. Gani, if anyone is in Portugal currently. So yeah, okay, that is fantastic. So how is Portugal and compared to Kuwait?
Well, I think again, I think in Kuwait it was like 46, 47 degrees 2 weeks ago when I
Oh.
was in Kuwait. And when I came here, the temperature is very lovely. I like it. Actually, in the night, it's surprisingly cold. I need a jacket. I didn't prepare for that. I thought it would be a little bit hot. But yeah, I mean, as an ISU graduate, I did this program, which is a very intensive 9 weeks program. I did it in 2010. It was in Strasbourg, France at that time, and now I am back here again to do it as a staff member, which means a different experience. But again, it's very great to be around space enthusiasts, space experts, astronauts, lecturers, and yeah, very enthusiastic environment.
So I think Portugal would be a little better than Kuwait, I believe.
Yeah, in terms of the weather, and also this event, of course, is amazing.
All right. So, well, thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and we get to know you and how great Portugal is currently. So now we can now proceed forward. And before we do that, I'll first like to ask you a question that I've known that you have been a Mars analog astronaut. So could you please give it a glimpse of your experiences as a Mars analog astronaut?
So after I came back from Germany in 2000, late 2017, I met Shreya in Space Generation Congress actually, and
Uh-huh.
Shreya was leading to form a team to go to the Mars Desert Research Station as SGAC team, attending an analog mission there. We
Oh.
applied as a team,
Uh-huh.
and we get conditional acceptance. If you want to go as a team, first we have to select two members from our SGAC team um, to go for a mission in 2019, and
Okay.
then if the mission was successful, we will go again for next year, which is 2020, all as an SGAC team together for the MDRS. So I was
Okay.
selected for the first mission, representing our team along with our colleague Maria Grulish from Germany. Unfortunately, Shreya was busy with her PhD thesis, so she couldn't attend with us. So I represented the team in 2019. It's a different experience. It's an intense human experience because you
Uh-huh.
get isolated for 2 weeks in a
Mm-hmm.
small habitat. If you want to go out, you have to wear your space suit to do an EVA. Of course, you need to do a mission. You can't go out, eat, or you are in a space
Oh,
mission for entirely 2 weeks. My role there was the astronomer of the crew. So
okay.
there was a small observatory attached to the habitat, and I was using this observatory to do a photometric analysis for variable stars. Of course, I was supporting the internal work of the habitat because, as you expect, we were 8 people, as I remember. Of
Uh,
course, we need to cook food, we need to clean, we need to wash, we need, we are living in a habitat, so there are a lot of duties and activities we have to do.
all
Um,
right. So,
I think it's an intense experience. It's not easy, and in the end, you feel you are part of something huge happening. Space exploration is something happening right now, and it's accelerating really fast for the future.
All right. Well, that is fantastic, and we got to know a lot of things about, yeah, about your master and log astronaut. So that's all wonderful, and how you met Dr. Shreya, and that actually reminds me that guys, tomorrow, on the 6th of July, we have a live session with Dr. Shreya Shantra. So don't forget to tune in for that. All right. So that's all fantastic. Thank you so much for answering that question. And now, we will come back to the topic of this session, and that is why lunar exploration is needed for developing countries. So please allow me to bring your slides. I think you have created slides as well, and there you go. So now you may now proceed forward with why is lunar exploration needed for developing countries.
All right. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I like this topic because, as a project manager in the Moon Village Association, participation of emerging space countries, it's important that we make an argument for people, whether decision makers or just general public, why it's important to be involved in moon activities. So, the discussion today will be about moon exploration, but also you can exchange that by space exploration, because it will start with the moon. In the beginning, moon exploration will be the starting point for Mars and also beyond. Uh, we can also exchange that with the expansion of civilization into the outer space. We can do a lot of space exploration. We can spend a lot of money on that. We can learn about Venus, about the solar system, and beyond. But the goal actually is to expand our civilization. We, I think we are going to witness, our generation. We will be witnessing the establishment, the foundations of settlements in the moon, where people later on will say that this settlement is my home. So we are going to witness this transformation. If you look at future plans by NASA, by Chinese Space Agency, even by India, there is a huge rush to the moon. So the goal is to expand our civilization into the moon and other planets, and also space exploration, moon exploration will happen in parallel to that. So as I am talking to general public or decision makers in developing countries, I need first to convince them that there is something different happening right now about the moon. It's unlike the past. The rush to the moon is happening and it's real and it's accelerating. But before that, I think it's important to discuss a little bit about history, starting from the first launch of Sputnik. And then I will discuss two reasons why I think it's important for developing countries to be part of lunar exploration, expansion of human civilization, or space exploration. Okay, as a starting point, we all know that space exploration era started with the space race, let's call it. There was a launch, there was a competition between the two major superpower at that time, the Soviet Union and the United States, on technologies to develop ballistic missiles, and of course, space is a demonstration. If you are capable to put a hardware in space and initiate a contact with it, you are demonstrating the power of this country, whether it's the Soviet Union or the United States, and therefore other countries in the world will love to make partnerships with the stronger. That's the mindset there. So the Soviets were more successful in the beginning. They sent Sputnik. It created the Sputnik crisis with the United States. So the major theme from 1957 until 69, the launch of Apollo, or let's say the mid 70s, by the end of the Apollo program was a competition. During that time, we can summarize several aspects, important aspects. There was an accelerated moves for space exploration. The first man in space, the first animals, the first woman, the first plants, going to places that we never been to. It was mainly focusing on space exploration activities. Um, all space activities at that time was funded by the government. We will see later commercial companies will be in the scene later on, but in the beginning it was all funds from the government. Also, we witnessed an important thing, which is the signature of the Outer Space Treaty in 1967. At that time, there are a lot of clauses, but I would like to highlight here that they agreed, the Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom at that time, um, not to allow any country in the world to claim sovereignty over any part of space. So no one in the world can say the moon is mine. And no country, no entity in the world can claim the moon, can claim part in the moon or any part in space in general. This is important as we are going to speak. So the next era is a cooperation era. Now the Americans finished the Apollo program. They landed in the moon. Now there was a transition period, which led us to a cooperation era between the two superpowers. As you can see here in the picture, to the right you can see the Apollo and the Soyuz capsules docking with each other. This is in a museum. And to the left, this docking actually happened in 1974 or 75, if I'm not mistaken, in the mid 70s. And you see the American astronaut is shaking hand with the Russian or the Soviet cosmonaut after docking both space stations to make a larger space station. Starting from the 70s, we started to see European countries, Japan, new players coming to the space club. So now it's not only the US and Soviet Union, but also other countries in the world. However, we started to see a de-acceleration of space exploration activities, but more focus on space applications, because now there is a more reasonable way to utilize space. Now we would like to send satellites for Earth observation, and of course you are aware about the importance of space application, whether it's communication or remote sensing for our daily life right now. So starting in the 70s, the funds from the governments started to shift from space exploration to space applications. And this has led us, starting from the 90s, we started to see more private sector coming on, because now we have infrastructure in space, we have a lot of data available, and you can utilize these data for commercial applications. We started to see the formation of new companies, the developing countries starting to also be attracted for space applications. We started, we can see many developing countries in the 90s launching satellites for space applications. And I would like, from my opinion, the end of this era was in 2004, when ISRO, actually, the Indian Space Research Organization, discovered water in the lunar pole. I think this discovery was a game changer. If you can see here in this image to the left, to my left, where you can see more water concentration in the green, I mean blue. This is the South Pole. To the right, to my right, is the North Pole of the moon. And this is extremely important, because now we know we can utilize this water to support human living there, not only for drinking water, but also to support the manufacturing of propulsion system to go to Mars, because launching from the moon is much easier. If you want to go to Mars and we launched from the moon to Mars, is much easier than launching from Earth, because lunar gravity is much smaller and there is no atmosphere. So this is a big changer. Um, um, this is a graph shows NASA's budget, general federal budget, NASA's budget compared to the American federal budget, total federal budget. If you check here in the 60s, early 60 in the by mid 60s, like 66, you can see a peak right here, and then the funding decreased. The peak reached more than 4.5% of the American federal budget. And nowadays, it's, well, the graph shows 2017, but it didn't change until today significantly. So we are talking about 0.5%. So what happened in the 60s that made uh, the budget so high to 4.5%? Maybe some of you will answer the question. It's the Apollo program. So the Americans made a huge mobilization to make human to make um  12 persons walking in the moon uh, from 1969 until 1973. Sorry. Um, However, if you are hearing the news in 2017, um, the Americans, the White House, and this is another different thing that we never witnessed before. The White House called NASA to lead an innovative and sustainable program of exploration with commercial and international partners to enable human expansion across the solar system. So this was a letter that was sent from the White House to NASA to urge NASA to to return humans to the moon for long-term exploration and utilization. This is something very new because in the past we only saw engineers, scientists drafting some concepts for a lunar habitat, for example, for a habitat orbiting the moon or in the Lagrange point, for example. But we never seen decision makers, policy makers from the White House seeking NASA to go to the moon, to expand human presence in the moon. This is a new and a huge jump. NASA responded with the National Space Exploration Campaign. As you can see, it's a report in 2018 with 5 strategic goals. 4 strategic goals, just summarizing what's written here in this slide. Sustainable program, unlike the 60s where only we had 12 persons went to the moon and then no one went back to the moon. Now it's sustainable. So humanity will go there in a partnership with international and private sector to build a sustainable and long-term exploration and utilization. The world utilization here is extremely important because large scale structures in the moon will never make sense without the utilization of resources in the moon. We are not going to send resources all the time from Earth to the moon as we are doing right now with the International Space Station, as you know. But we will need to utilize resources in the moon to have this large scale structure. NASA is not the only major space agency with plans to the moon. All major space agencies in the world, from the policymakers, are urging engineers and scientists to go to the moon. We saw, for example, ISRO's mission last 2 years ago that was partially successful to land, and it will be another mission by ISRO to land in the moon. Of course, the first step will be landers because this is how we are going to reach, whether we're robots or humans. ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos, the Chinese space agencies, all major space agencies in the world are going to the moon not because of scientists drafting concepts, but because of policymakers. So the moon rush is real, it's happening, and we are going to witness humanity in the moon, staying in the moon as we saw them in the beginning of the century with the ISS. Since 2003, the ISS is habitable continuously until today. We will see more space stations. There are plans for 4 new space stations in low Earth orbit, but most importantly, and this is the topic here, we will see also presence in the moon. So we are expanding. It's happening right now. So, returning back to the main question, why developing countries around the world need to be part of the moon exploration, the expansion of human civilization or space exploration. As I mentioned earlier, in 1967, three countries drafted the space policy, the most important treaty in space policy, which is the Outer Space Treaty. No contribution from other countries in the world. It's only three countries. So, and after 11 years from signing the Outer Space Treaties in 1977, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1 year before or after, as you can see here in the picture, countries in the equator from Indonesia to the east until Colombia to the west, you can see also African countries. Those countries claimed sovereignty. They gathered in Bogota, in Colombia, and they wanted to declare sovereignty over space above them, which is the geostationary orbit. At that time, as I told you, space applications started to emerge, and it was found that geostationary orbit is a natural resource by itself. It's considered as a natural resource because its strategic position, its location, very important for communication satellites. So basically, the Bogota countries, as you can see, Zaire, Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, all of them, they wanted to declare sovereignty. So if any country would like to launch a satellite to geostationary orbit, they want to have sovereignty, maybe an agreement from them, maybe some sort of payment like the Suez Canal or whatever. But to me, this is a lesson learned. This is at that time, all these countries in the 70s, none of these countries had a space agency. None of these countries had, maybe Brazil, maybe space activities, but not really developed. So, and until today, some of the African countries you can see here in the map are not really active in space. However, they joined forces to trying to reject the Outer Space Treaty. Of course, the Bogota Declaration in the end was rejected by the international community. But what we learned from this lesson, to me, this is the first ever conflict over space resources. And as we saw right now, major space countries are going to the moon to utilize lunar resources. The vast majority of the world population in the developing country will be left behind. There is a gap right now in policy how to regulate the extraction of natural resources in the moon. If developing countries are not really involved right now, as soon as possible, they will lose a lot because space policy will be drafted for the benefit of those who are contributing. So this is an extremely important part. So they questioned the Outer Space Treaty. They wanted to claim sovereignty over geostationary orbit, and then it was rejected by the international community, as I just mentioned. We don't want the Bogota Declaration to happen again over resources in the moon. So developing countries need to be part, and being involved in lunar activities does not require huge budgets. I'm not talking about doing a lander. I'm talking about being involved, understand, capacity building, what's going on in the, in the lunar community, let's say, and being involved in policy. As you can see, this is an artist visualization of the moon village. And when you see this picture, I want you to imagine business opportunities. This is large-scale structures. Can you still see my screen? Okay. Okay. So as you can see, this is an artist visualization of the moon village. And those are large-scale structures. You can imagine that these structures mostly were built from lunar resources, utilizing lunar resources. There are factories, There is an entire infrastructure, communication system between, the inside, among the lunar habitat itself and Earth. There is transportation system. Just imagine it. There is this is there are huge opportunities, a lot of commercial opportunities right here. Whatever your background is, if you are in the hospitality industry, for example, because an emerging market is space tourism right now, and it will be enabled due to the reduction of launching cost. And this is something happening. If you look at the launch cost reduction since the 90s, it's notably now, it's much less right now. And this will enable new markets. So if you are, of course, if you are an engineer, if you are a scientist, our culture, if you did some social studies, political science for of this habitat, or the moon village, if you like to call it, every aspect in our life right now we know will be expanded to the moon. So as young generation, I think we are all lucky to witness this transformation happening right now. Um, Another evidence, it's inside us, the explorer gene. We are explorers. It was found that 20% of our population, of humanity, hold the so-called explorer gene. We moved from Africa a long time ago to Asia, to Eurasia, because we would like to explore and settle. This is it's in our blood. So we are not doing something new by expanding to the moon. And our true wealth, humanity, is in our population. It doesn't make sense only to have a small, minority, maybe 5-7% only contributing to human expansion to the moon. Um, we have to be involved. Everyone had to be involved in the expansion of human civilization. Um, and to test this, I want you to imagine you are right now in the moon and looking at Earthrise. This is the Earthrise as taken by one of the Apollo missions in the 70s. Um, Earth is much larger than the moon. Its size, it covers a larger area in the sky if you are in the moon, and it's much more bright, and you can see the movement of the clouds from the lunar surface. So it's really dynamic, and unlike the moon, when we look at the moon from Earth, it's just a static scene. But when we see Earth, there is this movement of clouds, which is amazing, and it's really bright. So it's something that is you can't explain it until you see it. But it's really thrive enthusiasm, at least to me. Maybe you share this as well. So I would like to summarize right now. The moon rush is a reality in the ground. We are witnessing something never happened in our history, and we don't want to repeat the Bogota Declaration as an example of a conflict over space resources. That's why it's important for all countries around the world to draft a space policy for the utilization of moon exploration. And space exploration, uh, being explorers, something in our blood as humans. So, in conclusion, I think the question that I raised in the beginning is wrong. Why moon exploration is not the question. The question is, what will emerging space country lose from being late? If we are late, we will lose. It's a moon rush. It's happening, um, and and therefore, space exploration starting from the moon is a destiny, not a choice. We are not going to stop it. If a country decided not to be part of the moon rush, They will be left behind because it's a destiny. It's not a choice. It's going to happen whether developing countries are joining or no, because we see the plans. If you follow in more details, everything going in schedule for NASA's missions, the Deep Space Gateway, the Artemis missions, everything is going on plan. And also, Israel is planning huge plans for the future. China the same. So it's a destiny, not a choice. And by this, thank you for listening to me. It's not a long presentation. I just wanted to give an idea, and I will be happy to hear any questions.
Yep. All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Ghani, for the wonderful presentation. And well, that brings me to the next announcement which I wanted to make, and that is, guys, since you all know we have the International Moon Day very soon. That's on the July 20th. So we are having a lunar habitat design hackathon, organized by Spaceonova and the Moon Village Association India. So the link for the same has been given in the description below. You can see the link over there. You can click on the link and register for the hackathon. I hope that you guys will love this hackathon. And well, now you guys know the importance of lunar exploration and how important that is. So yep, feel free to participate in the hackathon as well as in the space science challenge. I hope that you guys have fun in the hackathon as well. So, well, thank you so much, Mr. Ghanim. And yep, we will definitely pick up questions from the audience. So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat section and we'll pick up one by one. We'll pick up all the questions. You know, you don't need to worry. We'll pick each and every question. So, there are a few questions from my end before we proceed forward. And that is, all right. So, you have explained about lunar exploration and how important it is, and that is, I mean, the destination. It's not a choice; it's a destination which every country has to go and which every country has to reach. So, um, or how can we achieve sustainable development goals through space exploration in these emerging space countries?
Yes, I think there is a huge link between the developing the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the expansion of humanity in outer space. First of all, we are now suffering a lot of problems. We have poverty, we have refugees, we have climate change, and we are putting huge stress now due to the population of Earth on natural resources here in Earth. We have two ways. Either we reduce our population, and this is really bad because the reduction of population is means that we are losing our main wealth, which is human
Yep.
minds. The less population, the less people think, and the less people will solve problems. As I mentioned earlier, the main idea of my own perspective is to involve emerging countries, and that means the vast majority of the world population. So, in order for us to achieve, happiness for wider people, much more people, we need to expand outside Earth because now we are reaching. I'm not an expert, but if we are not saturated, we will be reaching saturation very soon. We are seeing a lot of wars over resources. All the wars we are there. I think there is now more than 40 active wars right now happening.
Mhm.
So instead of putting resources in these wars, we need to put resources on how to expand and utilize resources and create new opportunities and new ideas for the moon, Mars, and even beyond.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. And we now understood what all do we need to focus upon to proceed forward in this space exploration slash lunar exploration. So, how or which brings me to another question, and that is, how can the government and private sector in these countries work towards a common lunar exploration mission?
Well, this is a difficult question for me. Honestly, I don't have an absolute answer, but I can tell you my contribution to this. So, in
Mm-hmm.
the Moon Village Best Project, um, uh, the participation of emerging space countries, what we do, we encourage teams and we mentor teams from developing countries to come up with a roadmap. This roadmap complies with the Moon Village Architecture white paper that was published 2 years ago. Um, this white paper has a vision for the world in the coming 100 years. There are three different scenarios for the future. We expect the future will be a mixture of these different scenarios, and the teams are mentored to identify the strength point of their countries and link these strength points with the gaps of developed countries' plans to the moon. I can say, for example, Kuwait is strong in oil, for example. We can utilize some of the activities of oil on utilizing resources in the moon. This is one example. We are seeing some countries like Luxembourg and the UAE are more interested into the commercial side. So there is always a way to contribute. Especially we are seeing this international openness. China now is open for cooperation. Although cooperation is not as is best between China and the US, but everyone is trying to cooperate with anyone else except both of them. And Russia, unfortunately, with the war in Ukraine, we are witnessing also some withdrawal in cooperation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that emerging countries can't cooperate for lunar exploration. So yeah, this is my part. We are trying to support teams to come up with the roadmaps and communicate those roadmaps with decision makers in their countries. Of course, in the roadmap, they have to mention partners, and among the partners are commercial companies and also academia, non-profit organizations, and so on.
All right. Well, that's a great initiative. I would say that's a very great initiative. What you guys are doing. So we have a question from the audience as well, and well, sort of is asking that what is the current best way to focus on planet, moon, stars from the space? I think what sort of meant is that I mean how do you decide on which celestial object should you focus upon for maybe excavation, maybe resources mining? So that is, I think, what sort of is trying to mean, I believe.
Okay, I will try to answer this question my best. So the most difficult aspect in space exploration is to send hardware, is to penetrate, if you like to call it, the gravitational well of Earth, to launch. And that's why space is extremely expensive. Um, the moon is our closest neighbor. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we discovered water in the moon. Before that, if you get back to the early 2000s in the 20th century, there was a huge discussion between the space exploration community. Should we go to the moon first or Mars first? Of course, Venus is also not far away, but it's still far enough to be extremely expensive. But Venus is extremely hot. Therefore, and Mars, in average, in some places in the equator, the temperature can be zero, a
Oh.
little bit above 0 degrees Celsius, which is, we can have instruments normally, but Venus is like the hottest planet on the solar system. It's more difficult to sustain hardware, software, human in Venus than in Mars. So it was always the discussion between Moon, Mars. Moon was close. It is close, and it's much easier to reach the Moon. But Mars is like the trip to Mars is like 9 months. Trip to the Moon is 4 days for human missions. So it's much easier to go to the Moon. So I think now, after the discovery of water, this discussion was ended. And now, even decision makers, as I explained in my presentation, everyone now is going to the moon. But of course, the discussion now, what we will do with the ISS, and the answer is happening. That there will be new 4 space stations coming up. One of them is commercial, one of them is Chinese, a new American one. So there will be expansion in humanity in low Earth orbit, and then in the moon, maybe later on some parts in the Lagrangian point. I don't know. And then, of course, we will use the moon to launch as a fuel station, if you like to call it.
Right.
We will produce fuel from the moon. So if you want to go to Mars now, we will go first to the moon, refuel, and launch, which is much cheaper to go to Mars.
Right. I mean, yeah, as you already said that bringing all the resources from Earth to space is very expensive. So we can harvest the resources already there on the space, and then we can move forward with it. So yeah, that is the ultimate goal, and let's see how or yeah, how many years down the lane can we achieve that particular goal in our mind. Okay, so we have another question from Saurav as well, and he is asking okay, how accurate Batinov mask is for the focus of astronomical telescopes?
I don't know what's Batman of Musk, unfortunately, so I can't answer this question.
All right. No worries about that. I think it is more of, I believe it's a device which we attach it with. I mean, I don't really know about the Batinov mask. I think he's asking about an astronomical telescope which is used. All right, Saurav, I think we will maybe pick up your question in some other session. Don't worry about that. So, all right, guys, if you still have any more questions, you can feel free to write them down in the chat section. All right, so let me, or question which we get a lot from the audience is that, um, all right, so how can any space enthusiast from a non-engineering background begin their journey in the field of satellite engineering?
Space from non-engineer background begin their journey in the field of satellite engineering.
Or not even
Um,
satellite, let's say just in space engineering, how can they actually uh, begin their journey?
okay, so yeah, as I mentioned in my presentation in the beginning, we can use different words: lunar exploration, space exploration, and the expansion of human civilization outside Earth. And this expansion will require all aspects of majors, including humanities, policy and law, and so on. So it's we will literally need every experience we know here in Earth, every profession to expand. This is for sure. And one of the studies, for example, on deciding what is the least population that can handle a village. Like we can't have maybe 20 persons. We can't, because this is a small population, and the main driver for that is to have a diverse professions. So the main driver on choosing the least number of individuals living in one village, sustaining itself by itself, is by having professionals doing the work. We need teachers to teach kids. We need workers. We need farmers. We need, you know, and you can name it. So, based on that, of course, some studies mention that the least we can have is like 120 individuals. That's the least. Um, but yeah, regarding space engineering, satellite engineering, of course, in that case, in this particular field, we will definitely need engineers, unless you want to study satellite engineering from scratch. Then I think that's going to be the choice. But don't limit yourself. If you are non-engineer, don't limit yourself now on space in satellite engineering. Satellite engineering now is just a small part of the space sector that is really expanding.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. And I believe that all the enthusiasts now know how can they begin their own journey. So, all right, guys. So, another, or I like to repeat the announcement that that there is a lunar habitat design hackathon organized by Spaceonova and the Moon Village Association India to celebrate the International Moon Day on the July 20th. The registration link, you can find them in the description below. So that is Lunar Habitat Design Hackathon. So don't forget to tune in for that. Links are in the description so you guys can register for the same. All right. So I believe that we do not have any more questions. In case you guys have any, please write them down. And before we have almost come to the end of this session. So there is some general questions, and that is, what is your advice to the participants of the Space Science Challenge 2022?
Dream big. You are doing space. Space is a very exciting field. I work in the oil industry, and I was telling my colleague that yesterday. Um, in any sectors in the world, you will see people publicly saying, "I prefer this company over this company because of payment." This is not the case with space. People actually compromise their good jobs to do space because of the enthusiastic feeling. And if you are working in an environment that people are enthusiastic about the cause of space, then it's really exciting. And because of that, we as space professionals and space enthusiasts, we think that we have a huge cause to do for humanity, and this requires, of course, dreaming as a first step. So dream big, work hard, and yeah, keep working to have achievements.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. And yep, dream big. That is what we want. And with that similar objective, only we introduce the Space Science Challenge for all the participants to dream big, innovate something new, and yeah, that is what we have. All right. Okay. So Saurav was asking geopolitical question, and that is any space technology harder to get because of geopolitics and space superpowers like a few countries?
Yes, of course. As you heard, for example, about altar restrictions, especially, for example, propulsion systems, and so many other technologies. That's why I always suggest that developing countries do their indigenous technologies, build their indigenous technologies first. Yes, I think it's important to start from the end. If you want to develop the space sector, you need to know what's going on and then build upon it, of course. But there is another element that you need to have an infrastructure of knowledge, to have indigenous technology. India is very successful on that. India built the space capabilities, the launching capabilities from scratch, and everything is done in India. There are other examples in the world as well, and I think it's important that every country make their own important technologies.
All right, so I hope that you have got your answer, Saurabh. Thank you for asking that question. And we've almost come to the end of today's session, and I believe that I have actually got a picture somewhere, and I think that you would like to describe about this particular picture.
Yes, so yeah, this is our crew, Earth to Mars. This is in 2019, yeah, and yeah, this was our patch logo for the mission. This is a good surprise, actually, a great memory, of course. And I think Shreya, Dr. Shreya, was behind this picture. Uh, yeah, as I mentioned, it was a very interesting. Oh, this is in 2020, actually. Crew 221 in 2020, not 2019. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. It's a difficult experience. Sometimes I wonder if I will do it again or no, but because of the nice memories, and you are living with the same people for 2 weeks, so we know more about each other, and we do some friendships that is still there. We are still in touch. So yeah, it's a great memory.
So, yep. Yes, February 2020. When Dr. Shreya is also commenting in the chat, it's February 2020. That is what this image is from. So yeah, we got it from the archives, and I thought, okay, let's go ahead and present this image as well. This patch looks beautiful, and all the flags and everything. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I'd say. All
It
right.
is. Yeah.
So as we've almost come to the end of today's session, so before we conclude, any book or movie which inspires you the most to pursue your dreams?
So I would suggest a book by Professor Frank White called Cosma Hypothesis. He suggests a philosophy for space exploration.
Okay.
Why we should do space exploration. There is another book by Frank White also called The Overview Effect. So those two are also interesting. I would also like to refer to the Space Renaissance International, which is an organization also devoted for the expansion of human civilization outside Earth, and they have also another philosophy for space exploration. You go to their website and just read the manifesto. They have a huge resources out there. Um, so those books actually that can come to my mind right now.
All right, we'll definitely go through them. Could you just repeat the name again?
Cosma Hypothesis by Professor Frank White, The
All
Overview
right.
Effect by Professor Frank White, and check
All
the website of the Space Renaissance International, where you can start by reading the manifesto, and then you will find a lot of resources.
All right, I think I found the Cosma hypothesis. Yes, Frank White, 1986. I got it. The Cosma hypothesis. All right, we'll definitely check these books out. Well, thank you so much. And I believe that with this, we have come to the end of today's session. So, once again, thank you so much to Gani for the wonderful session. Thank you so much for being a judge in the Space Science Challenge 2022. And thank you so much, lovely audience, for tuning in to this session. And we would meet again on the 6th of July with another session with Dr. Shreya Shantra. So don't forget to tune in for that session as well. I hope you guys had fun as we did. And see you guys on the grand finale that is on August 26th to August 28th. So keep building. And yep, that is great. So see you guys later and have a great day, great night ahead, whichever time zone you are in. And stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.